The alien servant girl moved slowly across the cold metal floor, her hands red and raw from endless scrubbing. The brush slipped from her weak fingers again and again, but she forced herself to pick it up. The overseer's voice still echoed in her ears from earlier that day. No rest for the weak. Work until the floor shines or you will be punished. Her body ached with fever. Her chest felt heavy, every breath sharp like broken glass. Still, she kept cleaning. She had been told since childhood that servants were not allowed to stop, not allowed to rest, not allowed to ask for help. She had learned to stay quiet and invisible, but her vision blurred. The wall seemed to bend and twist. The bucket tipped over, spilling dirty water across the floor. She tried to grab it, but her legs gave way. With a soft cry, she collapsed onto the ground. The sound was small, but it carried through the quiet hall. No one moved to help. 2 other servants in the corner looked away, afraid of punishment if they showed sympathy. The guards, tall armored aliens, only sneered. To them, a 6th servant was useless, but one man did move. He was not like the others. He was human. His name was Daniel, and unlike most, he did not look away. He saw the girl trembling on the ground, her thin arms trying to push herself up. She had strange violet eyes, half closed with exhaustion, and scars around her wrists where chains had rubbed for years. Daniel dropped the tools he was carrying and knelt beside her. "Hey, easy? Don't push yourself," he said softly. His voice was calm, different from the harsh tones the aliens used. The girl flinched. She had never heard kindness before, not from a master. She tried to crawl away, whispering, I must work, please." "Don't report me," but Daniel shook his head. "No, you can't go on like this." The guards at the far end of the corridor noticed. One laughed, nudging the other. "Look at the human. He picks up trash now." They didn't bother stopping him. To them, it was amusing. A human lowering himself for a broken servant. Daniel slid his arms under the girl's frail body. She gasped in shock, her heart pounding. No one had ever carried her before. Her people believed a servant's body was too dirty to be touched with care. "You're burning up," Daniel murmured. "You have a fever." She tried to resist, weakly pressing her hand against his chest. "No, I will be punished. Put me down." But Daniel stood tall, lifting her with ease. He ignored the whispers and smirks of the guards as he carried her through the hall. His boots echoed against the metal floor, steady and determined. The girl's mind spun with fear. Why was he helping her? What did he want in return? In her world, kindness always came with a hidden price. She had seen it many times before. Her voice was a faint whisper against his shoulder. Why are you doing this?" Daniel looked down at her, his expression calm but firm. "Because you need help. That's reason enough." She stared at him in disbelief, but her strength faded. Her eyes closed and she fell into a half-conscious state, her body finally surrendering to exhaustion. Daniel pushed open the door to his own quarters. Inside, the small cabin was simple but clean. A single bed stood against the wall, covered with a thin blanket. He gently placed her down, adjusting the blanket over her shaking body. She woke for a moment, panic flashing in her violet eyes. "No, not here. The bed is for masters only. If they see me." "Rest," Daniel said, his voice firm. "You're safe here." The girl's lips trembled. Her whole life had been rules, chains, and fear. The idea of lying on a bed covered with warmth felt like a dangerous dream. Tears slipped from her eyes before she could stop them. Outside, the guards exchanged whispers. They would report this. No servant had the right to a master's bed. Punishment would surely come, but for now they let it happen, curious to see how far the human would go. Daniel sat down on a chair beside her, arms crossed, eyes sharp. He knew trouble would come soon, but he didn't care. The girl's breathing slowed. For the first time in years, she slept without chains biting into her skin. And as Daniel watched over her, one thought grew in his mind. This act of kindness might have just started something much bigger than either of them could imagine. The alien girl stirred weakly, her eyes opening to soft light in a place she had never seen before. She was lying on something warm, soft under her fragile body. Her fingers brushed the fabric. It was smooth, not the rough floor she was used to. Her mind jolted with fear. She was on a bed. She pushed herself up quickly, but her arms shook and she nearly fell. Daniel was beside her in a second, steadying her with gentle hands. "Easy," he said, his voice calm. "Steady." Her eyes widened. "No, this is wrong. Servants cannot touch a bed. If they see me here..." Her words broke into a cough, her chest rattling with sickness. Daniel handed her a small cup of water. Drink. Don't think about them right now. She stared at him, confused. He spoke like rules didn't exist, like the punishments she had been taught to fear were meaningless to him. But she knew better. The overseers always watched, and they were cruel. Her hands trembled as she took the cup. She drank slowly, drops spilling down her chin. The water cooled her throat, and for a moment she closed her eyes, feeling life return. But fear still gripped her heart. What will they do to you? She whispered. Daniel shrugged. Doesn't matter. The words shocked her more than anything. To her, rules were life. To him, rules were chains that he simply ignored. She couldn't understand it. Suddenly, the door burst open. 2 alien guards stepped in, their armor clanging against the floor. Their eyes glowed faintly, cold and mocking. One sneered, his voice filled with cruel laughter. A servant on a bed? Human, have you lost your mind? The girl gasped and tried to slip off the bed, but Daniel blocked her gently with his hand. Stay, he said firmly. The other guard leaned forward. You break the sacred order. Servants belong on the ground, not in comfort. This insult will be punished. Daniel stood, calm but tall, his eyes fixed on them. She was dying. I won't let her be treated like trash. The guards laughed again, shaking their heads. Your kind always pretends to care. Do you think you can fight our law? The girl's heart pounded. She pulled at Daniel's sleeve, whispering frantically, Please, let me go back. I don't want you hurt. I will crawl on the floor, I will. But Daniel didn't move. He kept his eyes on the guards. She stays here. If you want to drag her out, you'll go through me. The guards froze, surprised by his boldness. Most humans bowed, obeyed, begged for mercy. But this one stood like a stone wall, unshaken. The silence stretched heavy in the small room. The girl held her breath, sure the guards would strike him down. Her people had seen beatings, executions for less. Finally, one guard spat on the floor. Fool, we will report this. The masters will decide your fate. With a hiss of armor, they turned and marched out, the door slamming behind them. The girl collapsed back onto the bed, her body trembling. Why did you do that? She whispered. You could be killed. Daniel pulled a chair closer, sitting down again. Because it was right. She shook her head, tears burning her eyes. You don't understand. No one cares about servants. Not even our own people. Why would a human care? He didn't answer right away. He leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees, watching her carefully. Finally, he said softly, Because I know what it means to be treated like you're nothing, and I won't stand by and let it happen again. The girl blinked, staring at him. She had never heard such words before. In her world, pain was normal. Cruelty was normal. To hear a man say she mattered, it felt like a lie, a dream she wasn't allowed to believe. She wrapped the blanket tighter around her thin body, torn between fear and hope. You don't even know my name, she whispered. Daniel gave a small smile. Then tell me. Her lips trembled. No one had asked her that in years. Servants were called only by numbers or orders. She hesitated, then whispered, Lyra. Daniel nodded slowly. Lyra, rest now. No one will take you while I'm here. Her eyes filled with tears she could no longer hold back. She turned her face into the blanket, silent sobs shaking her thin shoulders. Outside, heavy footsteps echoed in the halls. She knew punishment was coming. He knew too. But for now, in that small room, one human had given her something she thought was lost forever. Dignity. And both of them sensed the same truth. This small act of defiance would not be forgotten. It was the beginning of something dangerous. Something that could not be undone. The morning light in the station was always cold, filtering through steel corridors like knives of glass. Lyra woke slowly, her fever easing just a little. She blinked at the blanket wrapped around her, still not believing it was real. She was still in the human's cabin, still lying on the forbidden bed. For a few moments, she allowed herself to breathe in peace. But the peace did not last. A loud bang shook the door, followed by the heavy march of armored boots. Lyra's body tensed instantly, her eyes wide with terror. She clutched the blanket to her chest as the door slammed open. The overseer entered. He was taller than most, his alien frame clad in black steel, his long face sharp with disdain. Behind him stood 2 guards, weapons slung over their shoulders. His voice was cold and sharp. Human, you stand accused. Daniel rose slowly from the chair where he had been sitting all night. His face was calm, but his eyes narrowed. Accused of what? The overseer's gaze fell on Lyra, still trembling on the bed. His lip curled in disgust. You dared place a servant on your bed. You broke the ancient law. You insulted our order. Lyra tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. She had seen punishments for less, whips, chains, even executions. Her people always paid the price, not their masters. She pressed her forehead to the blanket, shaking. Daniel stood firm. She collapsed. She was dying. I gave her rest. That's all. The overseer's eyes gleamed with cold amusement. A servant's life is worthless. You know this. You were given a place here, human, but you are still beneath us. Do not pretend to hold power. Daniel took one step closer, his jaw tightening. Every life has worth. The guards shifted, surprised by his boldness. No human spoke that way, not to the overseer. The overseer's voice grew sharper, echoing in the small cabin. Do you think your defiance makes you strong? It makes you weak. The council will hear of this. They will strip you of your privileges, and when they do, this girl will pay for your insolence. Lyra let out a small cry. She slid from the bed, falling to her knees. Please. It was my fault, she whispered, her voice breaking. I collapsed. He only helped. Punish me, not him. Her hands pressed against the cold floor, her head bowed low in submission. Her body shook, but she forced herself to beg. Daniel's chest tightened with anger. He bent down and lifted her back to her feet, ignoring her desperate resistance. No, he said firmly. You will not take the blame, the overseer sneered. Look at this. The human carries a slave like a treasure, pathetic. Daniel met his gaze, unflinching. You can bring your counsel. You can bring your masters, but you will not take her from this room. The words hung heavy in the air, dangerous, defiant. Lyra stared at him in shock, her heart pounding. Did he realize what he had just said? He was no longer bending rules. He was breaking them openly. The overseer's eyes narrowed. Then you have chosen your punishment. He gestured sharply and the guards stepped forward. Their weapons hummed with energy. Lyra panicked, clutching Daniel's arm. Please stop. Please don't fight them. They'll kill you. They'll kill us both, but Daniel didn't move. His grip tightened around her hand, steady and strong. Let them try, he muttered. The guards hesitated. They expected fear, begging, surrender. But this human's eyes burned with something else, resolve. It unsettled them. Finally, the overseer raised his hand. Not now. The council must see this for themselves. Let him taste hope before it is crushed. With a hiss of anger, he turned and strode from the room. The guards followed, their footsteps echoing down the hall. The door shut, leaving silence behind. Lyra collapsed against Daniel, her body shaking violently. You don't understand, she whispered through her tears. They will not forgive this. They will make an example of you. Of me. Daniel guided her back to the bed, gently covering her again. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp with thought. Then we'll be ready, her breath caught. Ready for what? Daniel looked out the small window, where the distant stars glimmered beyond the metal walls of the station. His voice was low, certain, for whatever comes next. Lyra stared at him, her heart torn between fear and something she had never felt before. Hope. For the first time, someone had stood against the overseer. For the first time, someone had said she mattered. And deep inside, she felt it. This human's defiance would change everything. But would it save them or doom them both? The silence after the overseer left was heavy. Lyra sat on the edge of the bed, her thin fingers twisting the blanket nervously. Her chest still rose and fell with feverish breaths, but her mind raced faster than her body. She had begged Daniel to let her take the blame, yet he had refused. He had stood against the overseer like no one else ever had. She couldn't understand it. No one risked themselves for a servant, not even her own people. Daniel sat in the chair again, his eyes never leaving the door. He looked calm, but Lyra could see tension in his shoulders, the way his fists clenched when he thought she wasn't watching. He knew punishment was coming. Why? She whispered suddenly. Her voice was small, almost swallowed by the hum of the station walls. Daniel turned to her. Why what? Her violet eyes glistened. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. You could lose everything. They will hurt you. They might kill you. For me. Daniel leaned back slowly, exhaling. Because you were collapsing and no one else cared. That was enough, her throat tightened. His words felt simple, but they carried weight she wasn't used to. She lowered her gaze, shame pressing down on her. For a long time she said nothing, but inside her a storm churned. Finally she spoke again, her voice trembling. There's something you don't know. If you protect me, you won't just face the council's anger. You'll face something far worse. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. What do you mean? She swallowed hard, her hands clutching the blanket tighter. I'm not a servant by birth. I was taken. I was betrayed. Daniel stayed silent, letting her speak. Lyra's voice cracked, but she forced the words out. My family once stood in the council chambers. My father was a scholar, a keeper of records. He discovered something the masters wanted hidden. He tried to speak the truth, but they silenced him. They killed him, and they chained me. Daniel's eyes sharpened. What truth? Lyra hesitated, fear rising in her chest. For years she had buried this secret deep inside, knowing if she ever spoke it, she would be executed. But something in Daniel's steady gaze made her feel she could trust him. They lied to everyone, she whispered. The order of masters and servants, it isn't ancient. It was created. Manufactured. My father found the records. He said our people were free once, equal. The council erased it, rewrote history. And when he tried to reveal it, they destroyed him. They turned me into proof of their power. Daniel sat back slowly, his jaw tightening. The weight of her words hung between them like a blade. If what she said was true, then the entire system that ruled the station was built on lies. Lyra's voice broke into a sob. I never told anyone. I never dared. If they knew I remembered, they'd kill me in an instant. That's why they keep me close. A sick servant, always watched, always humiliated. A warning to others. My life is nothing but a shadow of what they took. Daniel's hand tightened into a fist. He looked at her. Her trembling body, her scarred wrists, her desperate eyes. And something inside him hardened. You're not nothing, he said firmly. And if what you say is true, then you're more dangerous to them than you realize. That's why they want you broken. Lyra shook her head, tears spilling down her face. And now you're part of it. You should have left me. You should have let me die on the floor. Daniel leaned forward, his voice steady and strong. No, I won't regret saving you, not now. Not ever. Her breath caught in her throat. She had expected anger, blame, even disgust. But instead she saw fire in his eyes. Fire aimed at the very masters who had stolen her life. The room grew quiet again, the air thick with the weight of her confession. Lyra wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, ashamed of her tears. Outside, faint footsteps echoed in the corridor. Daniel's head turned sharply, listening. The council would not wait long. Lyra's heart raced. You don't understand. If they find out you know this secret, they will not just punish you. They will erase you. They will make sure no one remembers you ever lived. Daniel stood slowly, moving to the door. His voice was calm, but inside it carried iron. Then let them try. But they won't erase the truth forever, not if we stand against them. Lyra stared at him, her chest tight with both terror and hope. For the first time since her father's death, she felt the spark of something forbidden. Belief. She whispered his name softly, almost to herself. Daniel. He looked back at her, and for a moment neither spoke. But both understood, their paths were now tied together. Her secret was his burden, and soon the whole station would tremble because of it. The summons came sooner than Daniel expected. Heavy boots thundered in the corridor, and the door to his cabin opened without warning. A group of alien guards filled the room, their armor gleaming, their weapons ready. Lyra froze on the bed, clutching the blanket around her like it could shield her from their eyes. Her body trembled, and her violet eyes darted toward Daniel in panic. The lead guard, taller than the rest, stepped forward. His voice was sharp, echoing through the small room. The council demands your presence. Both of you. Daniel stood, his face calm, though his chest tightened with caution. She's sick. She can't walk, the guard sneered. Then carry her. But if you resist, we will drag you both. Lyra whispered in fear. Daniel, don't. Please, if we go before the council, they'll kill us. Daniel bent down and gently lifted her into his arms. She was so light it hurt him to hold her, like carrying a shadow that barely weighed anything at all. He met her frightened gaze and whispered, We'll face it together. The guards surrounded them, escorting them down long corridors. Other servants pressed themselves against the walls, lowering their eyes in fear as the group passed. Whispers spread like fire, a human carrying a sick servant summoned to the council. The chamber doors loomed tall and heavy, carved with alien symbols of authority. They opened with a groan, revealing the High Council seated on raised thrones. The air inside was colder, heavier, as if the walls themselves carried judgment. Daniel set Lyra gently down on a cushioned seat that clearly wasn't meant for a servant. Gasps rippled through the chamber at the sight of her resting where only guests of rank were allowed. One of the counselors, robed in crimson, leaned forward. His eyes gleamed with cruelty. "You dare insult our order, human. You place a servant on your bed. You carry her into our sacred chamber as if she is worthy. Do you seek to mock us?" Daniel met his stare without flinching. She collapsed. "She needed care, I gave it. That's no crime." The counselor's laugh was sharp like a blade. "Among us it is the greatest crime. Servants are tools, not people. You will learn your place." Lyra's hands shook in her lap. She bowed her head low, whispering, "Please, punish me, not him. I failed my duties. It was my weakness," but another counselor, older and colder, narrowed his gaze on her. "You speak too clearly for a servant. Your tone carries pride. Tell me, girl, what secrets do you hide?" Lyra's breath caught. Her father's warnings echoed in her memory. "If they know you remember, they will destroy you." Daniel stepped forward quickly. "Enough, she's sick. That's all. Leave her out of this." The crimson-robed counselor rose, his voice thundering. "Silence, human. You will not speak over us." He pointed a long, clawed finger at Daniel. "You have broken the law. You defy our command. You protect what is beneath you. For this you will be punished. Unless—" The chamber grew quieter. Lyra dared to lift her head, her stomach twisting. She knew what was coming. The counselor's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Unless you give her to us, hand over the girl, walk away. We will forget your defiance." Lyra's blood turned cold. She gripped the blanket tighter, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. They didn't just want her punished. They wanted her silenced. Daniel didn't hesitate. His voice rang out firm and steady. "No, I won't give her to you." Gasps spread through the chamber. Even the guards shifted uneasily, not used to hearing such bold words spoken to the council. The older counselor's eyes narrowed. "Then understand this, human. You have declared yourself her shield. When she falls, you will fall beside her. When we crush her, we will crush you. Is that what you want?" Daniel looked at Lyra. She was pale, shaking, terrified. Yet in her eyes he saw something else, a spark of hope that hadn't been there before. He turned back to the council. "If protecting her means standing against you, then yes. That's what I want." The chamber erupted in angry voices, counselors shouting, guards tightening their grips on their weapons. Lyra pressed her hands to her mouth, stunned. No one had ever spoken to the council like that. The crimson-robed counselor raised his hand, silencing the noise. His smile was sharp and deadly. "Very well, human. If you choose the girl over your life, then your life will end with hers. We give you 3 nights. Surrender her by then, or you will both be executed." The guards stepped forward, ready to drag them away. Lyra clung to Daniel's arm as they were forced out of the chamber. Her whisper trembled in his ear. "You should let me go. You shouldn't die for me." Daniel glanced down at her, his jaw firm. "I won't let them win. Not like this." As the doors closed behind them, Lyra realized the truth. His defiance had turned into open war, and the countdown to their deaths had already begun. The station lights dimmed to night cycle. Shadows stretched long across the cold metal halls. Somewhere, distant engines hummed. But inside Daniel's room, there was only silence. Thick, heavy, filled with fear. Lyra sat curled on the bed, a small bag beside her. She clutched it like it was her last link to life. Inside it were only a few things. The water bottle Daniel gave her, a cloth scarf, and a tiny crystal shard she had hidden since childhood. Daniel paced the room, boots soft against the floor, his jaw tight. The council had given them 3 nights. 1 had already passed, and he knew better than to trust mercy on the 3rd. "We leave tonight," he said quietly. Lyra's eyes widened. "Leave, but where would we even go?" "There's an old emergency hangar below the waste sectors," Daniel replied. "Hardly anyone goes there. I saw it when I first arrived. There were maintenance shuttles, small ones, still half working." Lyra shook her head, panic rising. "They'll catch us. The moment we step into the corridors, every scanner will light up. They'll shut the gates. They'll lock the airlocks. We'll never make it." Daniel knelt in front of her. "Then we run faster. We hide smarter. We make it because we have to." Lyra searched his eyes. He looked so sure, so focused. But she saw the pain under the surface, the weight he now carried. all because he chose to help her. "You should leave alone," she whispered. "You'd make it without me." "I'm not leaving you behind," he said, standing. "Get ready. We go in 10 minutes. The corridors were quiet at this hour. The central lights pulsed dimly and a soft alarm beeped in the distance. Daniel moved carefully, supporting Lyra as she walked slowly by his side. Her legs still trembled, her body weak, but she refused to fall. Every time they turned a corner, she expected to see guards. Her heart beat like a drum in her ears. "Shortcut," Daniel muttered, guiding her into a narrow side shaft. "Maintenance tunnels. No cameras here." Lyra ducked under the low ceiling, blinking as dust filled the air. Pipes hissed above them. Rats skittered somewhere ahead. But it was better than the main halls. Safer. They moved in silence, step by step, but the peace shattered when a warning siren blared across the station. Daniel froze. "They noticed," Lyra gasped. "They locked down early." The station's robotic voice echoed overhead. "Unauthorized personnel detected. Sector gates closing. All guards to alert positions." Daniel grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. "Run!" They sprinted, their footsteps loud in the tunnel. Behind them, red lights flashed. Doors began to seal automatically. "Faster, Lyra," he shouted, lifting her again as her legs gave out. She clung to him, burying her face in his chest. "I'm sorry, I'm slowing you down." "Doesn't matter," he grunted. "You're coming with me." He reached a junction, turned left, and burst through an old service door. Ahead, down a rusted staircase, was the forgotten emergency hangar. They reached the final floor. Metal grates, oil stains, silence. An old ship sat under tarp and dust, its lights dead, engines cold. Daniel set Lyra down gently and ran to the controls. Come on." Lyra sat against the wall, breathing hard, every muscle screaming. She could hear the alarms getting closer. Daniel flipped switches, rewired 2 panels, and smashed the startup key. The ship coughed, sputtered, then roared. The lights inside glowed. The engines hummed. He turned and grabbed Lyra again, carrying her up the ramp into the ship. The door hissed shut just as armored footsteps echoed into the hangar. Guards. 5 of them. One shouted, "Stop that ship."
"Kill the girl!"
"Bring the human in alive." Shots rang out. Sparks flew. The ramp groaned as lasers hit the side. Daniel jumped into the cockpit, fingers flying across the controls. "Come on, baby," he whispered. "Fly." The engines screamed, the ship lifted, and then launched forward like a bullet. The hangar doors were still half open. Lyra screamed as the ship scraped through, metal grinding. But they made it into open space. Silence. Then stars. The ship drifted into the black, alarms fading behind them. The station shrank in the distance. Lyra lay on a bench, gasping, hands shaking. We made it?" Daniel slumped into the pilot's chair, eyes on the stars. "For now." She reached out, touching his arm weakly. "Thank you." "Daniel." He looked back at her, exhausted but smiling faintly. "We're not safe yet. But we're free." And for the first time, she believed him. The stolen shuttle floated silently through deep space. Stars shimmered outside, peaceful and distant. But inside the ship, the silence was tense. Daniel sat in the pilot's seat, watching the blinking warning lights. The ship was old, barely holding together. One engine was damaged, the fuel was low, and the oxygen alarm beeped softly in the corner. They didn't have much time. Behind him, Lyra lay resting on the small cot in the back. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale, and her eyes half closed. The escape had drained what little strength she had left. Daniel opened a secret compartment under the control panel. Inside was a data stick, one he had found long ago in a forgotten Earth archive. It was old, full of human files, including old medical blueprints and ship routes from a time before aliens ruled over everything. He had never used it. But now it was their only hope. He inserted it into the ship's port. The screen flashed. Old Terran coordinates detected, refuge base 1 jump away. Daniel's heart skipped. There was a place. A hidden base. Maybe old, maybe abandoned. But it was something. Then the screen flashed again. "Warning. Not enough fuel for full crew jump. 1 passenger must remain behind." His hands froze. The message repeated. Only 1 person could survive the jump. Daniel's mind spun. If he stayed behind, the ship could carry Lyra safely. But he'd be stranded, without air, without food. He'd die in the cold if she stayed behind. She wouldn't last even an hour. He looked back at her. She was awake now, barely. Her eyes met his. "You found something," she said softly. He nodded. "A hidden Terran base. It might be safe." Her lips trembled. "That's good," he hesitated. Then added quietly, "But we can't both make it there." "Only one of us," Lyra sat up with effort. "Then take it, go, survive. You can tell the others what they did. My story isn't important anymore." "No," Daniel said, standing quickly. "Your story is everything. You carry the truth. You remember what they erased. If I go and say it, they'll say I lied. But if you say it, they'll still try to silence me," she said. "But not forever," Daniel replied. "And you'll have proof. I'll send all of it, my logs, the data, everything I know, with you." She shook her head slowly. "You saved me when I was nothing. I won't watch you die for me now." Daniel gave a tired smile. "You weren't nothing." "You were never nothing." Tears filled her eyes. "Then come with me. We'll find a way. We'll share the oxygen. Sleep in turns. We can make it together." Daniel looked at the blinking fuel gauge. It was dropping faster now. If they delayed much longer, even one of them wouldn't make it. He crouched beside her, holding her hands gently. "You once said you were afraid to speak your name. You were afraid of being seen. But you're not just a servant, Lyra. You're the voice they tried to silence. You're living proof they lied. If anyone deserves to keep living, it's you." She pressed her forehead to his. "You are the only person who ever looked at me like I mattered." "I meant it," he whispered. A long moment passed. Then Daniel stood, kissed her hand, and helped her gently into the pilot's seat. He strapped her in, activated the jump sequence, and slid the memory stick into her jacket pocket. She gripped his sleeve. "Please don't do this. Please don't stay behind," he smiled softly. "You already saved me, Lyra. The moment I met you, I remembered what it means to be human." The jump system began its countdown. 9. 8. Lyra was crying now, shaking her head. "I don't want to go alone." Daniel leaned forward one last time and whispered, "Then don't waste it. Live. Speak. Be louder than they ever expected." 2, 1. The ship vanished in a burst of light, leaving Daniel alone in the silence. He sat on the cold floor, watching the stars. His body was tired, but his heart was calm. Far away in a new place, the ship would land. Lyra would wake, and she would speak. She would carry the truth. And maybe, just maybe, others would listen. Daniel smiled, leaning his head back against the wall. He didn't die as a worker. He died as a man who stood for something.